Well, your family is so important. I wore this today as a nod to your dad.
Well, I saw it, and I immediately think of my dad when I see, or think about Johnny Cash. Always.
Did you ever meet Johnny?
I did. Yeah.
Oh, you got to tell me what he was like.
Yeah. He was. I use this phrase "bigger than life," and it's. My dad was good friends with Roy Orbison, and he worked with Cash, and Mickey Newberry lived with us for a while, and one of his best pals was Cowboy Jack Clement, and as a young teenager, wanting to be in music and feeling my heart was in that music. When I was around those people, they were bigger than life, and so. Like they would fill up a room. They're like their energy, their personality would fill up a room, And as a young teen, a shy teen, I couldn't imagine myself filling up a room, so to speak. And so I didn't start off trying to be an artist, even though my father wanted me to be, because I didn't feel I could handle the being bigger than life, So I wanted to make music and create records, and the studio was perfect for me because there wasn't any windows. There wasn't anybody in there unless you wanted them in there, and you were in control of the lights and the audio and whatever it may be. So it was, like I said, as my wife would say, must be nice in your little world. And in that was my little world and a huge part of my life. So I'll say to my wife sometimes, I'll be closing the curtains and darkening the room. She says, "No, leave that open. I got to have some light, And I think, well, God, I spent so much of my life in rooms without windows, without that natural light. So.
Well, I guess we started the podcast in the middle of a conversation, so I'm glad we did that.
Well, good. I mean, it's the easiest way for me to slide in.
But I have to introduce my guest, David Malloy, who I'm honored to have on today.
Well, I'm so happy to be here with you and to get a chance to do this, and I can already tell this is going to be a really good interview.
I hope so, man. It's a big moment to have someone like you on. I was on the way over here listening to I Play Gimme Shelter.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'll just start off by shining a little light on your new music.
Okay. As I never had thought of myself as being an artist ever. And so when I created the album and getting into I Play Gimme Shelter, it's the first time in my life that I had recorded music on myself. Even though most of my life was spent in a studio and creating music, it was never about me. It was always about other people. And so I had some songs. God, how deep you want to go on this, man? Because this is why I made this album. Okay?
Surface. We got an hour, so we got a lot to cover.
Okay, so I'm gonna get right in it. So can I pull something out of my bag because this is important to the story.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's important to the story here. Sorry, y'all. Just be a second, but
don't you worry.
But this is important because of what started my album. Goes back to this wallet.
Mason's wallet.
Yeah, and this is my son's wallet. And I lost my son 18 years ago, and I grabbed this wallet, and it's been in my right front pocket. Anytime I leave the house, I take it with me, and it's falling apart. You can tell, but I'll keep it till I'm gone, or it won't hold anything. And I've even thought about maybe getting it repaired. You know what I mean? So, and anyways, I hadn't really come to grips with it. We moved to a golf course. I've been playing golf my whole life since I was 10 years old.
Okay.
And we moved to a golf course. And Luke Bryan is a member of this golf course. And I thought, well, God, I'm probably going to run into Luke Bryan. And I'd like to know some more about him, some of his music. And Kathy said, well, he's got a documentary, like some 3-part documentary.
That's right.
So I watched the documentary, and I had no idea that he had lost his sister. He's very close with his sister and his brother. He had lost his brother first, and then I guess a couple of years later, he lost his sister. And in his story, I found some closure on the loss of my son. And for anybody out there who's lost a child, I don't know. There's never closure. There's a thing. You get around it. You don't get over it. You just get around it. And so in that, I moved forward and was able to get around. And I didn't feel like I had ever publicly acknowledged his loss and how I felt about it. And I started writing a song, and I called it Mason's Wallet. And it's literally, I put Mason's wallet in my right front pocket 18 years ago, and that's the first line. And so the song is about the wallet. But what happened after I did that, it's like my heart opened up and I started writing, and I couldn't stop. And I've always been a co-writer.
Yes, sir.
And never trusted myself as a solo writer, because I always have just wanted to do the best, greatest work that I could do, and I didn't know if I was personally capable on my own of doing the best, greatest work. And so I didn't know quite what to think. But these songs kept coming, and I couldn't stop. And I had 6 of them, and my wife, Kathy, said, "What are you going to do with them?" And I said, "Well, she said, you need to go record them." And I said, "Well, I need to get some more. Next thing I know, I'd had 16 songs, and I narrowed it down to 14, which makes up the album Mirror, which is, so I'm actually a new artist. It sounds so funny to say that, but I was thinking I'll go for the oldest new artist Grammy Award maybe, or something like that,
That's terrific. Jelly Roll just won it at 39 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's
what
not
an amazing career in that guy, man.
Yeah, I love inspiring stories, and I'm so happy for you that with your struggle,
yeah,
but your perseverance reminds me of a line from one of your songs, "Good Morning Winners." It's a big win to persevere through pain.
It is, and that's another one of the songs on the album, which is A Brand New Day, which is about hope and second chances. That's what it was about. I have a black German Shepherd, my girl, and I took her out early in the morning, and the sun was just starting to come up on the east, and over to the west, the moon was starting to go down, and I just kind of looked over and I said, "Good morning, sunshine, and good night, moon." And I went back in the house and grabbed my guitar. I must have been, 6:15 in the morning, and just started going with those lines and created that song. And then as I started just in this writing, I was just trying not trying to be another character, because in my productions and work with other artists, I always felt I was a chameleon, so I would become them inside my head, and I would think, well, if I was them, what would I need musically, But in this case, it was about me personally. So in that, I wasn't being a chameleon. I was just letting my emotions and feelings and stuff in the rawness of them just come out, and a little more unedited.
Yes, sir.
And this is what it is. And then when I look back and listen to like Brand New Day, I go, wow, this is about hope and second chances, But at the time, it was just flow of writing.
Well, now imagine if you took that video and you opened for the Stones at the Sphere.
Oh, yeah.
The visuals on that video would be perfect for the Sphere.
Yeah. Well, that's God, I love your imagination, because I think big like this too. Yeah. But obviously, if they even just heard it, I mean, it would be the greatest thing. So anyways, what it was is from that, I think it was the Let It Bleed album that had Sympathy for the Devil and I Play Gimme Shelter. And musically, I love those so much. If I'm in the car and one of them comes up on the radio, I crank it up, because I just love the groove and the feel of it. And so in the writing of this music, I decided that I'd try to write my kind of tribute to them, even though the song is not about the Stones, other than when the line says, "I play Gimme Shelter." The rest of it is me.
Yeah, and you got a Beatles reference in there?
Yeah, I got that in there too, about, well, I needed that rhyme, Helter Skelter.
Yeah,
well, how else I got a rhyme?
It worked, man.
And at the time I thought, well, it's Beatles, but really with Beatles and Stones and that, those are major influences in my life in that time, and some of the Doors and then on to Crosby, Stills and Nash. Had a huge, that album, James Taylor, the JT album. These are albums that molded me, that inspired me, and the joy, the inspiration when you're inspired. For a creator. That's the juice. That's the gas. That's the octane. Is that is inspiration, inspired, and feeling inspired, and wherever you find that,
Who are is Rolling Stones one of your biggest influence?
Yeah, but Beatles would have been the biggest.
Beatles?
Okay? The Beatles would have been the biggest. Okay. I mean, I Want to Hold Your Hand. I remember I was in the 6th grade in LA. We lived out there. My dad was a big time recording engineer. We were in Los Angeles, and And I remember being in the 6th grade, and all of a sudden that song, I Want to Hold Your Hand, just, and there was some little cute girl, I think that I was, I think her name was Kim, or something that and I was a shy kid, and along came the Beatles and those first feelings of girls and what a world all that was. And so, musically, I related to their songs and everything so much. And then so much that came out of London, came out of England, so many great artists that were so inspiring. And then, God, I mean, I'm sorry, people, but our generation, we had the greatest music on the planet. We just did. I mean, Hendrix, come on, it goes on and on and on, Dylan, whatever, any direction you want to go. Donovan, it's just incredible music,
I can't argue with that. The great thing is I was born after those years, so I still get to appreciate it. I'm glad I wasn't born before. What are your top 5 Beatles songs of all time?
Well, I'd have to say, I Want to Hold Your Hand, just because it was such a turning point in my life when I heard it. Okay, the B-side of the Let It Be album was something that was really strong to me. The White Album, Rocky Raccoon, what that song did, and just how it made me feel. Of course, Let It Be. The first time you heard that, you're in your friend's living room. I'm still in high school, and that goes on, and it's like, and then let's get to the Sgt. Pepper's album. That was, you never heard sounds like this before. You never heard, people playing with the tapes and backwards and the layerings, and these were all new sounds, and they were so impactful, so powerful. So it's more than just the 5 songs. It's the whole movement. It's the whole wave. It's the whole thing that those songs are a part of.
We'll call that favorite albums and songs. Well, I do want to dig into your career as a writer and producer.
Okay.
You have had such an impact on me. If you don't mind me starting by asking if you'll tell me the story behind Driving My Life Away.
Yeah, love it. Love the story of Driving My Life Away. Okay, so the artist Meatloaf was doing a movie, and the movie was called Roadie. Mm-hmm. And Eddie and Even and I, we were like, Even Stevens, I met Eddie through Even Stevens when we were going to start a publishing company. I went to my dad and said, I want to start a publishing company. He said, go find a writer. Okay, so in the same day, I meet Even Stevens, and his friend and his writing buddy is a guy named Eddie Rabbitt. Mm-hmm. Okay, so anyways, I felt the three of us are like a 3-legged table that created a superhuman named Eddie Rabbitt. And so we had done a lot of things, but we had not done anything for a movie. And so Elektra Asylum Records, and Eddie was on Elektra Records, and they called and said, hey, we're going to send you a script, and we were like thrilled. And so we were reading the script for the movie Roadie, and we were going to write this song. And I remember saying, well, if we write just to this script, and the movie's a bomb, it's like nobody's going to know what we're talking about in the song, And so Eddie said, well, roadies they're really just truck drivers, right? He said, let's just write a great truck driving song. And so off we went, off we started. So the inspiration came because of the movie Roadie.
Can you imagine, or could you have imagined back then that it would be the kind of song that lives on with legendary status today, that's on every country drive playlist?
Yeah, not at the time. But you know what? You're not thinking down the road. You're just thinking in the moment. When you're creating in the moment, there's no. It's easy to look back in hindsight and describe the music and put it in little boxes, but it's not how you create it in the moment that you're in. You're not thinking about so much down the road, you're just in it. Okay, so in that case, we were just writing, and Eddie was so brilliant, his rhythms on acoustic guitar. And so when we made his records, I didn't put electric guitar parts and fills and stuff so much on the intros, because in a case of like that, and Step by Step and those songs where his rhythm it was the hook. And so I didn't want to get away in the rhythm. So Eddie started in on that great rhythm of Driving My Life Away. And that first lines, I remember him coming out of his mouth, the three of us were sitting there, about midnight headlights, blind you on a rainy night, steep grade up ahead. And that's another, when we wrote, what we wanted to do was we wanted each word to create 4 more words in your head.
Right.
The visual, the picture of it. So we tried to write visually. And so that midnight headlights, blind you on a rainy night, steep grade up ahead, windshield wipers slapping out a tempo. We've all been there when that sinks, right? Okay. So we wanted to write in a way that the picture got bigger in your mind.
Right.
That you made more out of the words, right?
Right.
And it's interesting. I don't think I've ever talked about this part of the writing in an interview like with that.
Well, it's one of those.
So this is the first, about writing it, trying to write that way in imagery.
Yeah. It's amazing you're talking about that. One of the most frustrating things for me when I was growing up as a writer, just trying to learn the craft, is people used to say, quit telling me, show me. And it was like so infuriating.
Yes.
Because I'm like, I don't know how to do that when you're just learning.
Right. I get it. Well,
but y'all did it perfect on that song.
Well, thank you. I think we did too. I think we just nailed it. It was a killer piece of work. And it's proven out through the years, like you said, that it's just, I couldn't count how many times somebody's come up to me and said, I've played that song of yours in a bar so many times, and I'm up on stage in a bar and what it's been. So, and I tell you, that's an amazing honor to get to carry that around with you. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really is. And it's just, and I don't take it for granted. I don't take it lightly. And to me, it's all been a giant blessing, and so I feel responsible for it.
Yeah.
So to speak. You know what I mean? And I always felt responsible for my music that I made. I felt like millions of people were going to hear the music. And so the energy of the music has got to be positive. It's got to be uplifting. And even if it was a song about a broken heart, I still wanted it to musically feel uplifting and healing, even though it might not have been lyrically that.
Yeah. What about producing Dolly Parton?
Yeah, what a joy.
What is that like?
God, what a joy that was. Well, man, it was her last album for RCA, and Joe Galante had called me up and he said, I want you to produce Dolly. It's it's the last album that we're going to have with her. And I said, well, of course. So now, here's the crazy thing. My father, for a short while, was married to Stella Parton. Okay. So I had met Dolly at some family reunion or something of the Partons, and I was with my dad at the time. And my dad had worked with Stella, recording Dolly at RCA. Because when I was 13 years old, Chet Atkins was out in LA working with my father on some background vocal stuff, and he convinced my father to move to Nashville, and that's how we wound up in Nashville. And through that, then it was all the artists on RCA, and so Dolly Parton, my father had worked with Dolly. So to get to work with an artist that my father had worked with, of such an iconic artist, that in itself was something I had never done. Plus, Dolly is Dolly. And I tell you right now, she's everything you want her to be, man, all the time. It's just the greatest thing. So anyway, so I'm going to, so she sends me a cassette. I get a cassette of I think it was 9 or 10 of her songs. Okay. And I listened to them and I liked them. I didn't like them all. Some of them I felt were really long, and so I wanted to get a mixture of some outside songs besides some of her songs. And, so I went out to, she had an apartment out in L.A. up in the Hollywood Hills, and so I went out there. Yeah, this is an embarrassing story to tell, but anyways, cassette players were pretty new, and I had these songs on a cassette. Okay, well, the only cassette player she had was in her bedroom, and I'm just getting with her for the very first time, right, to listen to these songs. So she said, well, she said, well, and I had the cassette. She said, oh, well, my cassette player is in the bedroom, and it's one of those big boxes that was sitting on a dresser, right? So she jumps up on the bed and she pats the side of the bed. She says, sit here next to me on the bed and we'll listen to these cassettes, right? So I'm up there and she's so funny, you know how she is, and her mind is so quick, and my heart's like, here we are. I can't, I'm embarrassed. I'm sitting on Dolly's bed. We're going to listen to these songs. And she makes some comment to me about, imagine how many guys would like to be in the bed with me, right? And I'm like, so I'm turning red as a beet. I'm probably turning red now even telling this story, you know. So we listened to these songs, and she picked the ones that she liked, and I picked some of hers that I liked, and then I only saw her about 3 or 4 times, and then I went back to Nashville. She came. We actually cut the tracks for their Real Love album with the duet with Kenny Rogers, Real Love, in Los Angeles, and I believe it's the very first digital recording in country music ever. Now, Chuck Ainley and I get into this argument. He's one of my best pals. We get into this argument. And I said, no, Chuck, I did this before you did whatever it was you did. So, and I didn't get permission from the label or anything. I was a stinker. I did whatever I felt I needed to do to make the hit, you know. So we did it, I think the very first digital album. We recorded the tracks there. And then she came in and I think there was like 4 of her vocals that we didn't even re-sing. There was no need. Her track vocal was everything you could ever want it to be. So she came in and like for like 2 days in a row and sang the other songs, and it was like 1 or 2 takes. I mean, it was like nothing, you know. She's just incredible. So we do this record. So here's the thing now, and this is what y'all want to hear about Dolly. Okay, we're going to go to lunch and take a break. All right. And I said to her, she was coming in the studio here the day before, the next day we're going to work. And I said, listen, because she always is dressed like she's going to be on stage. And so I said, you know, if you want to be chill, you can, because there's nobody going to be here. I mean, it's the engineer, you know, and me and you, and to get these vocals. So if you just want to relax and just kind of relax it. And she said, oh, no. She said, I'm Dolly, and my fans expect me to be Dolly. And so when she comes to the studio, she could like be on stage. All right, so we're working for a little while, and we decided we're going to take a lunch break, right? And so I said, well, she said, what's around here? And so it turns out there was this Mexican restaurant about a block away, right? And I said, okay, let's go there. I'll get the car and we'll drive over there. She said, oh no, we'll just walk there, right? So we're walking down, I think it was Lancashire Boulevard out there in the valley in Los Angeles, with Dolly down the sidewalk, looking like Dolly, and the cars are going by. They're slowing down because they're looking, because they know, my God, it's Dolly walking down the sidewalk, right? And we walk into this restaurant, and we had lunch. And I'll tell you what was the coolest thing that I learned so much from her, and that is when she talks to people, it doesn't matter. There's no status in life of where you are. Like, are you the president? Are you this? It doesn't matter. If it's the busboy or the owner, Dolly talks to everybody the same. There's no, you know, one's more important than the other. And she really blew me away. And the few little times that I was around her, it was just impressions and things that I could never forget.
I love the stories I hear about Dolly as someone who's never met her, but just a fan of hers and thinks that she's a cultural icon. But to your point, I've read an article that said she told people she never goes to bed without full makeup on because you never know when an earthquake might hit.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, honestly, she's just, you know, of course, she's just, and her sense of humor is incredible. You know, she's so quick, so brilliant.
And standing her ground when she knows what her worth is.
Yes.
She stood up to Elvis, the Colonel.
Yeah.
She wouldn't let Colonel cut "I Will Always Love You."
Oh wow, because they wanted half.
They wanted half.
Yeah.
And they told her the night before, and she said, "I can't do it."
Yeah.
I can't have
good
it.
for her. I mean, the Colonel was notorious for that. You know?
Yeah.
Elvis was so huge that everybody would say, "Yeah," you know.
I've always wondered if Elvis even knew those kind of things happened.
You know, I wouldn't. I'd have to say I wouldn't think so. I don't know. You know, really, not really sure. You know, I never met the Colonel. You know, I knew where his house was out in Madison because Dad had pointed it out to me when he had that house out there, and I think it was on Gallatin Road way out. But I never had met him, and I never did meet Elvis, and I hated that part because I could have met Elvis, and I loved Elvis's movies. You know, I loved musicals.
Yeah.
I was a kind of peculiar little kid. Didn't realize it until I got older and looked back and went, wow, I was kind of an unusual kid, you know. But I loved musicals, and I loved Elvis's movies and some, even though it's the Beatles that really took it to a whole nother level and really touched me the deepest. But I did, I was obviously impressed with, and I knew my father worked with Elvis, and my dad adored Elvis and said Elvis is just the sweetest, greatest person, you know. and just love his time with him. And I think my father recorded over 90 sides with Elvis, did a lot of the music for the movies and things like that he did.
You know, I love the Beatles and Elvis. I think if you allow for room to have like the longest lasting legacy in two different branches, the longest lasting legacy for a band has to be the Beatles, and for a solo act, in my opinion, has to be Elvis.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so weird that there's people that think you can't like both.
Yeah.
That used to be a debate, didn't it? Like you couldn't like one, or
right.
You had to be loyal to one.
Well, yeah, the camps, yeah.
Yeah.
But wasn't it, I don't know if it's true or not, but wasn't it the Beatles finally got to meet Elvis, and Elvis says, "Hello, Beatles." You know, it was like, you know.
Well, I wish my computer guy was here today. He could pull this up for us, but there's some quote out there from Lennon that says Elvis was everything.
Yeah.
He started the whole thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, you don't have to do that, Ben. I know you're locked in. We just have his website up for later.
Oh, okay. All right.
But shining more light on some of your work.
Okay.
You produce Kenny Rogers,
Yes.
as you talked about with Real Love. What about producing Reba?
Reba's a wonderful person, and I worked for Reba for 5 years, and I had an office there at Starstruck, and they signed me as a songwriter, and to the publishing company, Narvel at the time. She
Okay.
was married to Narvel,
Yeah.
and Narvel had signed me, and I went into Narvel's office one day, and they wanted me to produce. They wanted me to develop an A&R department for the management company at the time. And I went in and sat down with Narvel, and I said, you know, I think Reba's musically now. I feel like Reba is just acting out being Reba. And the statement was like, "What?" I said, "I feel like she's like kind of doing herself." You know what I mean? And so when I got with her, we cut some positive love songs. I think she told me they were like the first time she had recorded positive love songs. You know?
Okay.
I remember saying to her one time, you know, because her songs were, she was a victim in a lot of the songs, you know, who's
Does
ever
he
into
love
me
you?
and stuff like that, you
Yeah.
know, and so jokingly one time, which I shouldn't have said this, but I would say stuff and then later go, "Oh my God, I shouldn't have said it." But I said, you know, we were just joking. I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, America's favorite victim, Reba McEntire," and I went, "Well, I shouldn't have said that," you know, but she laughed, you know, and I adore her. I just one of my favorite people, and I call her a friend to this day, and man, if something major happens in my life, all the way even back to the loss of my son from 18 years ago, whatever, she'd be the first phone call,
Yeah.
good or bad, whatever it might be. I would hear from Reba, you know,
Yeah.
congratulatory or I'm sorry or whatever it may be, and just a wonderful, wonderful person. And I just every time I see her being successful, I'm just so happy to have been a small part, you know, along her success road there. Yeah. And she's still just knocking it out the park. I think she's got a new show again.
New
right?
show.
I know, which is fantastic.
She's like Dolly. She just doesn't stop.
Yeah, yeah. And talk about people you can draw so much inspiration from.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
Tony Brown was on the podcast and was kind of talking us through when Reba suffered her tragedy when she lost her band. So I'm sure, sure she can relate to what you've been through, and that's why it's so great when you see people that have suffered tragedy like that supporting each other.
Yeah,
and good soul.
Good soul.
You know, when you have an artist like Reba and Dolly, you want to know that they're good people, that they're not just about the facade.
Yeah, yeah.
You practice Transcendental Meditation, right?
Yeah, like, God, 50 years, I guess, you know. And that's not something I talked about much early on. I'm more comfortable talking about it now just because way back when in country music wasn't the first topic that came up.
Yeah, well, I adopted it about 5 years ago. Not TM.
Okay.
I just meditate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if we would call what I do meditation as much as contemplation. I try to take a moment. I try to stop. I have some go-to music I listen to with ear pods, and I give myself about 30 minutes. I have a meditation I do. But I wanted to ask you, for people that feel in this world that they're losing connection, because a lot of people are. We're disconnected, even with social media. Everyone's confused. What does it do for you, and maybe even what does it do for you in the writing process?
Well, it's been the cornerstone of my life just has. It's just been, and it, it's an interesting thing, Transcendental Meditation, because it's not a religion, it's not a worship or anything like that. It's a mantra meditation, and it allows the mind to settle down inside itself and kind of leave the five senses of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of dive down or kind of transcend down. And when you come back out of your meditation, it's kind of like you feel like you've kind of like had this mental shower, kind of feel more refreshed and more together. And when you do this over a period of time, this constant diving down and coming back out and diving down and coming back out, it starts to assimilate in all facets of your life, because it's in the core of your being, and your life starts from the core and then it expands outward. And so it has, it's, that connection of those feelings of love and gratitude and those are core feelings, and I'd hate to think anybody has lost or is losing those feelings, because they're essential and so in this constant doing this, I think it's kind of made me who I am, or whatever that means. But it's not like I've tried to take Transcendental Meditation into my music. I wasn't trying to write lyrics about Transcendental Meditation or trying to get some secret message or anything like that. It was just something that I did for myself. Rick Rubin's been doing Transcendental Meditation over 20-something years. It's like, Paul McCartney. There's a lot of, Dolly does Transcendental Meditation.
Right. There's
a lot of, it's an amazing thing. And it just, it helps keep that mind-body connection,
Yes, sir. Well, I guess TM has to be somewhat related to your song Higher Self.
Totally.
Okay.
Now, Higher Self, and that's another song off my my Mirror album, is about my my journey and struggles to find, obtain, and connect with my higher self. And there's a humor in it, kind of like the way I, kind of in the journey. Have I reached that place? No, I haven't reached that place, but I'm still striving to reach that place. And life is a journey, and you realize that every one of those little steps towards your goal is your life. Like we set goals. I'm a goal person.
Right.
My goal is I want to get this, want to get this. Well, that time in between now and you getting to that goal is your life and your day-to-day life, and so I'm at a point, God, I can't believe you got me talking about all this stuff. I thought I was just going to be my pro producer talk. But anyways, I've tried to just, as I've gotten older, my personal goal in my life now is to be in my moment, 100% in the moment, and not trying to forecast the future and tomorrow and the outcome, and trying to instead of trying to manipulate the outcome, trying to be in the moment, and as you live the moment, it will dictate the outcome.
Well, I hope I didn't put you on the spot.
Well, no, you didn't put me on the spot. I just, I'm happy to talk about it. But I'm just kind of I was like, I co-wrote my first hit and I was still in high school. All right. And I just started having hits from day one. I didn't go through a period where I was a failure and then I made it. I just started off that way. Yeah. And through that, you become kind of a private person.
Yeah.
Because you're young, and the next thing you know, everybody's kind of looking at you like, what's your secret and what it is that you do. And so you just kind of have an inward side, kind of a private side. And that's my meditation side. And my, there again, as Kathy said, must be nice in your little world. Okay. But you have a little world, it's kind of in yourself. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I'm okay to talk about it. It's, it's just because I feel like you asked about losing touch with yourself. It's just, it all generates from self, that feeling, that emotion. And, like before we started the interview, you were talking about a road rage incident. Yeah, and I hate to think that, that anybody gets to that point where there's that much anger, built up. And, because I know I'd have to think that anybody with that kind of anger, when they would look back on it, they would have to ask themselves, why was I so mad?
Right. That's why meditation has been so helpful.
Exactly. Because it helps. It's like letting some air
response.
out of an overblown tire a little bit,
Right.
And letting some of that stress thing out,
It's really controlled how I react to situations, kind of in the same vein of stoicism.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in control of everything happening around me.
Right.
But I'm very much in control of how I respond. One of the reasons I thought it was interesting to talk to you about it is people will understand that you've had such a successful career. And when you're very career-driven and goal-oriented, if you don't take time for yourself with things like meditation, things like outside hobbies such as golf or whatever.
Fishing. My dad loved bass fishing.
Right.
He's nothing like in a boat there by yourself, throwing a line there, and
So I think it's
Harlan
important.
Howard, the famous Harlan Howard. Bass fishing was his thing.
Country music
Getting on Center Hill Lake, and he'd stay up all night long by himself and run around that lake fishing for bass.
Yeah. But that's why I think I like to ask about some things outside of music. So people that are kind of inspired by your career want to understand how you've been able to find all the success that you have, that it's not always just the music. Sometimes you have to be very connected within to be able to go out and accomplish the things you want to.
You got to trust your feelings. You got to believe in yourself, okay?
Yeah.
And you got to trust your feelings. And it's easy for me to say, and it can be hard to do, okay? Because we're all guilty of second guessing ourselves, And the handful of times that I felt like I was able to work with a true genius in the studio, one quality I felt they had was the ease with which they would create. They wouldn't second guess themselves and edit themselves to death. They would just let it flow. And I was, was always envious of that, of that natural flow like that without question. And when you heard what they were working on or creating, you couldn't improve on it because you knew they were right.
Yeah. And where were you working with this engineer or producer?
Oh, it was just a few times, certain sometimes with an artist. I couldn't even think of a name. It was just, I'm really talking about moments that struck me. People, the ease with Eddie Rabbitt was genius. Eddie Rabbitt could just, words would fall out of his mouth like. I remember we were writing one time, he and Eva, like a whole verse would come out. It's like blum, it's like there's a verse. Not a line, not a word, a verse,
Yeah, I think I've heard someone say that he could write a song in like 5 minutes sometimes.
Yeah, he could. We were doing, and the funny thing, we were one time, I remember a lady coming up, the three of us were standing there, and she was asking about one of the songs, and she said, how long did it take you to write it? It's one of the questions you get asked all the time, how long did it take you to write it? And before any of us responded, Eddie said, it took about 2.5 hours to write it and 20 years to get there. And I thought, wow, that's so well said and so nailed it, because you have to create and mold and success and failures of your creation until you get to a place where it's so second nature. Same as like a guitar player. When you quit looking at your fingers or how to make the things, and and you reach that place where what's in your mind is in your fingers at the same time. And it's the same for songwriters, as it is musicians or any of the creatives. I always look at that as the master level when you get to that point. When you've mastered that craft, when it is second nature.
Now that you're, handling yourself as an artist, trying to get comfortable with that, producer, songwriter.
Right, yeah.
Which one do you have a preferred lane of all of them?
I gotta tell you, being an artist is hard. You know why? Because you got to remember that stuff. I'm serious, man. I'm used to, we get together, we create something, I make a record. I'm not remembering it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I've done that. I'm moving on to the next thing. Okay. Well, when you're an artist, you got to remember those chords and the feel and those lyrics and all that, and all of a sudden there's a whole album and more. It's in your head. And God, I think about Taylor Swift. I've thought about it. I thought, my God, how much information she's got to have memorized and keep in her head. That's hard work. It's easy to create something, walk away and go on to the next thing.
What do you think when you're an '80s, when you've helped build this, and you see someone like Taylor come along that kind of starts in country and does crossover, which you have been very much influential in some of country's crossover success.
Right.
What do you think about it, Taylor?
I think it's fabulous.
Yeah.
Look, I have no bitterness about style change or any of that at all. I don't, no harumph kind of an attitude about it or anything. And I get asked that a lot. How do you feel about country music? And it's not really country, and it's not really that. I don't really care.
Me neither.
Because here's the thing. I mean, you call it country music, but let's call it popular music, because that's really what it is. Okay, its success is based on popularity. If you could create something that millions of people love, I give you a standing ovation.
Right.
Okay, I'm not going to judge you because you didn't use this sound or that drum beat or the way you sang it, or you sound to this or to that. Forget all that, man. I applaud you because you were able to hold the attention of millions of people and satisfy them and touch them. That's a standing ovation every time for me for that.
Yeah. That's my one-hit wonder kind of theory. That, growing up, we used to laugh about one-hit wonders. Oh, it was a one-hit wonder.
Right.
As I've gotten older, I've realized those guys grew up with a dream. They might have had one hit or one album, and that was kind of it for them.
Right.
But they got to live out their dream, but for a moment.
Right.
So why not be happy for people?
Absolutely.
And I
totally feel the same.
I've learned, so I guess you and I can both admit Taylor Swift doesn't write songs that are going to resonate with you and I.
No.
But we can be very impressed by her success.
Taylor Swift's just writing her life.
Yeah.
She's writing her feelings, And I'll tell you somebody else who does that, I just love, is Casey Musgraves.
Oh my God.
I just love it. And this new album, hers, my favorite album. I've listened to it over and over and over again. I just, and that's we were talking about that level of genius that we were talking about. Okay, there's that thing. To just be able to write about your personal feelings and be in that kind of flow and not edit that, okay? They have the great ability to do that. They just tell their story. It's their life. And listen, we're all kind of going through the same emotions and feelings. So when you do that right, it touches millions of people, because these are back to the core that we talked about, this core emotions and core feelings that we all have and feel. And when you can capture that in a song and add the right melody and the beat and stuff, that's what becomes the success of popular music.
Yeah. Casey Musgraves is so special because she came along and almost reestablished do it your own way. March to the beat of your own drum.
Yes.
We have very few. I get it though. I get when, you start to make a little bit of money, your label's telling you what to do.
Oh yeah.
That becomes your income. And then you kind of want to play it safe. I don't think she's safe. She kind of goes in different directions, and I enjoy it.
The hardest album for an artist to make? The second one.
The Sophomore Jinx.
Yeah. Because the first one, nobody gives a crap what you're doing.
Yeah.
One person signed you and there's something in the rest of the label, you're not making any money. I don't care what you do what you want to do. Then all of a sudden that album explodes, right? And then the next album, everybody wants to help you make the next album.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're all in on it on this album. And that's a hard thing for an artist to deal with, because all of a sudden everybody's looking at you and nobody was looking at you before. And it's tough. Sophomore album.
They, I guess they used to call it the Sophomore Drinks. I always remember hearing about it when I was young.
Yeah.
But you go back, you have your lifetime for the first one, and you have 6 months for the second one.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I guess you said you don't want to talk about anything non-music, so I won't go into UFOs.
I've seen a UFO.
Have you really?
Yeah. Honestly.
Where?
You want this story?
I want it.
Oh my God. All right. He's over there pointing. I'm getting thumbs up. Yeah, we got to hear about that. Okay. Caribou Ranch is a famous recording studio up in the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
It's in Nederland, Colorado. You go through Boulder on up the mountains, and Jimmy Guercio, famous producer, manager that Blood,
CMT.
Sweat, and Tears in Chicago and created CMT and all that, had a huge 3,000-acre ranch called Caribou Ranch, and there he made a world-class recording studio with these incredible 2-story log cabins, and you could book it out. And for some reason he liked me, and so he'd give me a price and a rate that I didn't have any problem with doing. The label didn't say anything, and so I'd go up to Caribou Ranch and work. So we'd just kind of go up there, and I loved working up there in the wintertime, which is kind of crazy because there's snow, but they had snowmobiles. We'd have some fun. But we'd get up there and work. And a lot of times too, a lot of the music would be created in the winter because your artist is on the road all through the summer. So it's part of the cycle of that. So anyways, we're up there, and the studio is in a 3-story barn, and my wife and I were staying in one of the log cabins, which was, I don't know, 200-300 yards away. And so it was about 8 in the evening, and my wife comes in, just white as a sheet, in a panic, and she said, "My God, I just saw a UFO. I saw a UFO." And I'm like, come on, a UFO. And I'm in the control room there working. And I said, "Just go back. I mean, I'll be up there in just a little bit, And she said, "I'm not walking by there by myself." I said, "Okay, all right, I'll walk with you." Right. So they had these big parkas that they gave us. So we got put on our big parkas, in the snow, and we step outside, and we're outside the studio, and there's it's all kind of a clear, beautiful valley, and then in the distance there's these pine trees, and then behind us there's this mountain, kind of like goes on up in there, and so I step outside there, and I said, "Okay, where'd you see this UFO?" And she said, "I saw it over there." And right at that moment, this cigar-shaped thing comes and hovers over these pine trees, right? It's not making any noise, okay? And it's got the green lights kind of going around it, you know what I mean? Cigar-shaped. You've heard this story through the years, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm looking at and it's just stationary. It's just hovering there, okay? And I'm like, my eyes are huge. They're huge right now telling the story. And next thing I know, man, this thing just darts in behind the mountain and it's gone.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when I started talking to a couple of people around there, they said, "We see them all the time." So it was freaky. I mean, it was a freaky thing, and I don't know. I mean, who knows? It could be, aliens. It could be maybe our government's developed technology we don't know about. I mean, okay, whatever it may be. All I know is what I saw with my eyes was totally real, and it was something I could never forget. It really just, was a life-changing experience.
What year was it?
Oh, God, it would have been in the 80s. It would have been probably 81, 82, something around in there maybe. Yeah.
Well, Caribou Ranch is about 500 miles from Area 51.
Uh-huh.
So that's a possibility.
Yeah, it is.
The other possibility, and this is a little bit more having fun, the first song ever recorded at Caribou Ranch was Rocky Mountain Way. Joe Walsh could have summoned him with the talk box.
Maybe, I don't know.
I've seen one.
I didn't know that was recorded. You have?
Yeah.
Okay, what was yours shaped like?
Mine's very different. I have a video I'll show you after.
Oh, okay, wow.
Because I want to say it was a drone at 2 a.m.
Uh-huh.
I was taking our trash out at 2 a.m. because I had forgotten.
Uh-huh.
And I look up and there's this thing doing all these crazy things in the sky. And then finally it slowly goes away. And I videoed the slowly going away part, of course. But it's just a light.
Because at the time you're like, wow, you're not thinking grab my phone or anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're in overwhelm.
Right. Yeah. I think I've always said, why don't people get more footage of it? Because it's always like the end. And I was like, well, shit, I got to get the footage out.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's in Colorado, there's a lot because it's also probably 500 miles from Skinwalker Ranch, which is a crazy story in and of itself.
That sounds like another episode.
Oh, it's a whole, it's a whole TV show.
Okay.
Some wealthy businessman bought it, and now they're doing a TV show to try to test the frequency under the ground. And
wow.
Once it becomes a TV show, I'll lose interest.
Yeah.
But up in Colorado, it's kind of everywhere.
So I can picture it right now like it was yesterday. I mean, it's just burned in my brain.
Was it scary or intriguing?
It was both. I was in a panic, only because I never, you hear about it and you think about it and you think you'd be cool if you actually really see one, but it's overwhelming. It really is. So I'm just like, what do you do? It's not like I had a great night's sleep that night, Because the Bob Lazar story didn't come out till 1989. So it's interesting that you were there in 81 seeing it. Yeah.
Because he was at Area 51 working on alien technology, according to his story.
A couple of people up there told me they see him so much they think that there's a base behind the mountain because see that ranch goes up against the national park because of the. It's the only place where they've got the what are the ice rivers? You know what I'm talking about. When a river's when a river's solid ice, glacier.
Glacier.
Yeah, it's glacier. There's a glacier park up there. Okay, and they felt like it was in behind that mountain because these things would dart in behind that mountain.
You lived a wild life. I love it.
Yeah, it's been a big life,
Yeah, I feel like we could go on for hours and hours. So I hope you'll come back on to tell me even more about.
Oh, sure. Is our hour up? We already hit it already. Oh my God! Wow. Yeah.
We're close. Are we close?
10
Okay.
10 minutes. Okay.
Well, then
okay. You want to go back? Yeah.
Yeah. Two things.
Yeah,
so
you got
one, because we'll put the website up at the end to make sure everybody knows where to find the music. But
Okay.
I'd like for you to give the audience advice on the drive it takes not just to make it, but enjoy a long, remarkable career with sustained success like you've accomplished.
Okay. Feel free and comfortable and be able to laugh at yourself. Because you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to always get it right, but follow. You've got an inner voice there. You've got a feeling inside of you. You got something that, every creative thing starts with some kind of seed of inspiration. There's something that sparks it. The spark. Call it the spark or the seed or whatever you want to call it. So, trust those feelings. And don't become the editor too quickly, or you'll shut yourself down. Let it flow. Let it happen, whatever it may be. Let it go for a little while, okay? You can edit it. There's plenty of time to edit it and tear it apart. Do it later. I see a lot of people shut themselves down because they start editing themselves too quickly, and then they talk themselves out of it. And maybe not just music and all kinds of things in their life. We've seen people who do that. Just they're going to do something. The next thing you know, they've talked themselves right out of it. So trust those feelings. Make sure you truly have. I've said this. I've said thing I say to new artists when I meet them, and they want to be a star. They want to make it, and I go okay, and I'll say, well, do you have a B plan? If it doesn't work, if they have a B plan. I tell them to go straight to the B plan. I said, you know what? Because you've got doubt, and you got to believe in yourself so hard, without any doubt, that this feeling you have inside of you that you got to get out at all costs is your drive. You've got to have that. So you've got to have that inspiration, and you're going to need that in those lonely hours you're going to put in honing your craft or working on it. You're gonna need that drive to finish it.
Yes, sir.
Because it isn't like there's going to be a lot of time that you're on your own working on it, trying to get it right, and you got to like yourself. You know what I mean?
Sometimes that takes work.
Sometimes that takes work. You got to like yourself, and believe in it and trust it, and if that particular one you're working on doesn't get there, it's the old try again. Dust yourself up, get back on, get back up on the saddle, ride again, keep going. If you're still feeling that inspiration, you still got that spark, you're still feeling that drive, then keep going with it.
Yeah.
And that's I've only been able to do this because that passion has been there and that drive. And I didn't wake up Monday mornings dreading a week of work. I'd wake up Monday mornings going, I can't believe I get to go do this again,
Yeah.
And so it's an addiction, maybe even stronger than sugar. It's just something you can't get enough of. That
Safer
you just
than
keep
sugar.
doing. Yeah, that you want to just keep doing, you know what I mean? Over and over again, because it just feels so good. I remember, Even Stevens, I just love Even, and I don't know if you've had Even on this show, but
I haven't.
He'd be great. He'd look at me sometimes and he'd go, "Can you believe we get paid to do this? Because this is the most fun thing on the planet, and to actually get paid to do it." So that's back to that drive and passion, and those are such important elements, and that's back to that core that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So that would be the thing. Don't let it flow, and just kind of put it all out there, and edit it later. You know, don't shut yourself down for doubting yourself too soon, too quickly.
Well said. I appreciate it. Ben, can we throw the website up real quick so people can see? There we go. So this is the website. What's the exact website name so I can just say it so for people that are just listening?
DavidMalloyMusic.com.
DavidMalloyMusic.com, Malloy. And this is where you can find the new album and tons of your work.
And that's me when I was 15 years old.
I thought it was even younger when I first seen it.
No, I was 15. That's me. And that's the guitar that Chet Atkins picked out for me.
Oh, over at Gruen?
Yeah. My dad and Chet went down there, and Chet decided it should be a little gut string. They don't call them gut strings anymore, right? Classicals. Because it wouldn't hurt my fingers as bad, and he didn't want me to quit because my fingers got sore.
I mean, your life amazes me. Chet Atkins picked out your first guitar.
I still have that little guitar. It's a Giannini. That's the brand.
That's awesome. Well, if y'all will go to this, you can see David's videos. The first one up there is Mason's Wallet. I've been every once in a while glancing over at that wallet.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell you, on top of appreciating you coming on, I really appreciate your story, your perseverance, and the message you carry.
Well, thanks. I just trying to live my life, man. And I'm trying to, be faithful and true to myself and be proud of myself,
I appreciate that. I appreciate all the things you've done in your life musically, but getting to learn
Thanks.
from you today
Thanks,
about the kind of
Taylor,
human.
so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, the kind of human being you are. I appreciate that, man.
Thank you. Thanks.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you all so much.